If you love me, please don't judge me. Got my hands tied, the power's above me. Don't shoot the messenger, I'm just a puppet here. If you wanna place blame, then look to the puppeteer. Family, fortune, envy, jealousy, privilege, passed on, legacy, secret, sabotage, borderline, felony, suicide, subtract, selfish, pedigree, yeah.
How's it going, everybody? It's C-RadTV back here with another video. So, of course, it's time to continue on the What If NASCAR Had the F1 Points format series. So, the last time in the series, we took a look at the NASCAR North Tour and learned that a couple things would have changed under the F1 Points format, but a lot of things stay the same. And in this one, we're going to continue on with the series, and we're going to take a look at the now inactive NASCAR SouthEast Series. So, of course, on the SouthEast Series, it was known as formerly the Slim Jim All-Pro Series and the AutoZone Elite Series. There are four branches that this series was, and this series took place with races in parts of the southeastern United States. This specific series area, regional area series, whatever the hell you want to call it, this series ran from 1991 to 2006. NASCAR chose to terminate along with the other three regional series in 2006 due to financial reasons and, lack of interest. So, yeah, this was also more of a development series, too. So, yeah, anyway, we're going to take a look at every season that the NASCAR SouthEast Series ran, and we're going to see what would have changed under the F1 Points format. And of course, before I continue on, rest in peace to Robin Miller, the famous IndyCar broadcaster for NBC, who passed away after a lengthy battle with cancer, so rest in peace to him. Thoughts and prayers with his family, of course. A legendary broadcaster is gone. Damn, this has not been a year for NASCAR legends. Anyway, continuing on the screen, I'll show the 2 points formats we're going to use for this part. And so, yeah, we'll have the top 6 format and the top 8 points format. And before we continue on, let me once again stress out that this is just a hypothetical scenario. I know everyone would race differently had they used these points formats. This is just for fun. So now, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and let's jump right into it. So the 1991 season, it was mainly a two-man battle for the championship between Jody Ridley and Jason Keller. Both drivers were even with each other in terms of speed and consistency throughout the year. But late in the year, Jason Keller, he would fail to be consistent in key points of the year when it mattered the most. And Jody Ridley would pull away as a result. And Jody Ridley would lock up the championship with a race to go in the season. So under this format, Jody Ridley would still be the inaugural NASCAR SouthEast champion. So the 1992 season, it would be a two-man battle for the championship between Jody Ridley and Bobby Gill. Both drivers were dead even with each other in terms of speed and consistency. But in the end, Jody Ridley would fail to be consistent in key points of the year when it mattered the most. Bobby Gill would take a full advantage of it, get a couple wins. And Bobby Gill would pull away from Ridley late in the season. And Bobby Gill would win the 1992 championship and lock up the title with a race to go in the season. So Bobby Gill would be the champion in 1992 under this format. Now, the 1993 championship battle, it was a very close neck-and-neck championship battle between Jody Ridley and Mike Cope. Both drivers were dead even with each other, neck and neck with each other all year. This championship would go down to the wire that after Myrtle Beach, the championship would end in a tie between Cope and Ridley. In the end, the tiebreaker would be most wins, in which Mike Cope had 5 wins to Jody Ridley's 3 wins. So with that, it means that Mike Cope would win the 1993 championship over Ridley on a wins tiebreaker. So under this format, Mike Cope would win the 1993 championship in a tiebreaker. So the 1994 championship battle, it would have been a close 3-man battle for the championship between Mike Cope, Bobby Gill, and Jody Ridley. All 3 were dead even with each other in terms of speed and consistency, but late in the year, Bobby Gill would fail to be consistent in key moments of the year when it mattered the most, and Bobby Gill would be eliminated with around a race to go in the season. So in the end, the championship battle went all the way down to the season finale at Myrtle Beach between Mike Cope and Jody Ridley, with Cope entering with a 5-point lead over Ridley. So it was set up to where Ridley would have to finish at least second or better and hope Mike Cope finishes out of the top 6 to have a chance at the championship. In the end, in the season finale at Myrtle Beach, Jody Ridley just struggled with speed all race, and he would end up finishing 17th, 1 lap down, while Mike Cope would do everything he would need to secure the championship by finishing 5th in the season finale, which meant that 5th place finish would be more than enough for Mike Cope to win the championship over Jody Ridley by 7 points. So under this format, this would be Mike Cope's 2nd straight championship. So the 1995 season, it was a close championship battle between Mike Cope and Hal Goodson. Both drivers were dead even with each other in terms of speed and consistency. It was a championship battle that went down to the wire, and it would go all the way down to the season finale at Myrtle Beach, with Mike Cope entering with an 8-point lead over Goodson. So it was set up to where if Mike Cope finished in the points, he would win the championship with a 6th place finish or better. Hal Goodson would need to win the race, and he would need Mike Cope to finish out of the points, or at least finish 6th. So actually, effectively, it would mean that Mike Cope would need to finish 5th or better to lock up the title. So anyway, in the season finale at Myrtle Beach, Hal Goodson would struggle throughout most of the day, and Hal Goodson would end up finishing 12th in the race, 2 laps down, while Mike Cope, he would do everything he would need to lock up the title, and would finish 4th in the season finale. And that would have been more than enough for Mike Cope to win the championship over Hal Goodson by 11 points. So under this format, this would be Mike Cope's 3rd consecutive championship. So the 1996 championship, it was a close 3-man battle for the title between Mike Cope, Toby Porter, and Ron Young. All 3 were neck and neck with each other all year. In the end, though, late in the year, Ron Young, he would fail to be consistent in key points of the year when it mattered the most, and Ron Young would bow out of the championship battle with a race to go in the season and would be eliminated. So in the end, the championship battle would go all the way down to the season finale at Homestead Miami Speedway between Mike Cope and Toby Porter, with Cope entering with a 5-point lead over Porter. So it was a very close championship battle. In the season finale at Homestead Miami, Toby Porter, he would crash out of the race on the opening lap of the race. So that would result in Porter finishing 31st, only completing 1 lap with a DNF. While Mike Cope, he would go on to finish 2nd in the season finale at Homestead, and that 2nd place finish would have been more than enough for Cope to win the championship over Toby Porter by 11 points. So Cope would win the 1996 championship under this format. And under this format, this will be Mike Cope's 4th consecutive championship in a row. So the 1997 season, it was one of those rare seasons where there really wasn't a clear-cut dominant driver all year. It was a very toss-up of different drivers for this championship. In the end, it was between mainly 6 drivers. It was between Hal Goodson, Jeff Fultz, Ron Young, Hank Parker Jr., Steven Christian, and Derek Gilchrist. All those 6 were the class of the field all season. In the end, though, late in the year, Christian, Parker Jr., and Gilchrist would all fail to be consistent in key parts of the year when it mattered the most. And those 3 would be eliminated from the title battle with around a race or 2 to go in the season. So in the end, the championship battle would once again go all the way down to Homestead Miami Speedway, and it would be between 3 drivers. It would come down between Ron Young, Hal Goodson, and Jeff Fultz, with Ron Young entering 4 points ahead of Hal Goodson and 8 points ahead of Jeff Fultz. So Fultz had to win the race and hope that Young and Goodson struggled to have a shot at the championship. Goodson just needed to finish a couple spots ahead of Ron Young to have a shot at the title. Mainly, Goodson would have to finish at least 3rd or better to have a chance, and hope Young struggles. In the end, in the season finale at Homestead Miami, it was a very anticlimactic championship season finale, as all 3 would struggle with speed all race, but Fultz and Goodson would struggle with speed the most at Homestead, as Fultz and Goodson would just miss the setups completely. Both of them would finish 16th and 17th respectively, 2 laps down, while Ron Young, he would end up struggling for the most part, and he would finish 9th in the race, 1 lap down. So with all 3 struggling and all 3 finishing outside the points, it means that Ron Young would lock up the championship by default in a very anticlimactic championship battle. So the championship was pretty much decided the race prior. So yeah, under this one, Ron Young would be the 1997 Southeast champion. So the 1998 season, it was all about Freddie Query. Freddie was just very fast and dominant all year. Like, nobody had an answer for his speed and consistency. Like, Freddie Query, he would actually have the best season out of any driver under this points format in the Southeast Series in its existence. And Freddie Query, he would end up easily cruising to the 1998 championship. So Query would still win the 1998 title under this format in convincing fashion. So the 1999 championship, it was mainly a 2-man battle for the championship between Wayne Anderson and Billy Bigley Jr. Both drivers were dead even with each other in terms of speed and consistency all year. Like, it was a championship battle that went down to the wire. In the end, this championship battle would go all the way down to the season finale at Nashville Fairgrounds, with Anderson entering with a 1-point lead over Bigley Jr. So in this one, it was pretty much whoever finished the highest in the race would end up winning the championship. In the season finale at Nashville Fairgrounds, Bigley Jr. would just struggle and have all kinds of issues throughout the race. Just nothing went right for Bigley Jr. And he would end up finishing the race 19th, 42 laps down, while Wayne Anderson would go on to win the season finale at Nashville Fairgrounds. And that win would be more than enough for Anderson to lock up the championship by 11 points over Bigley Jr. So Anderson would still win the 1999 championship under this format. So the 2000 championship, it would once again come down to another battle between Billy Bigley Jr. and Wayne Anderson. Both drivers were dead even with each other in terms of speed and consistency. In the end, this championship would go down to the season finale at Nashville Fairgrounds, with this time Bigley would enter the finale with a 9-point lead over Wayne Anderson. So for Wayne Anderson would have to win the race and Bigley would have to finish 6th or worse to have a shot at the championship. So for Bigley, all he had to do to win the championship at Nashville was just finish 5th or better and he would lock up the title. In the season finale at Nashville Fairgrounds, Wayne Anderson would struggle throughout the race and he would end up finishing 10th, one lap down, while Billy Bigley Jr. would do everything he would need to win the championship, and he would end up finishing 4th in the season finale. And that 4th place finish would have been more than enough for Bigley Jr. to win the championship and get redemption for last year by winning by 12 points over Wayne Anderson. So Bigley Jr. would beat Anderson in 2000. So the 2001 season, it was all about Wayne Anderson. Like, Wayne Anderson was just flat out fast and consistent all year. Like, nobody had an answer for Wayne in 2001. And Wayne Anderson would end up easily cruising to the 2001 NASCAR SouthEast Championship in 2001. And under this format, this would be Wayne Anderson's 2nd championship. So the 2002 season, it was mainly a two-man battle for the championship between Jeff Fultz and David Rudiman. Both drivers were dead even with each other in terms of speed and consistency. Like, both were dead even that this championship battle would go all the way down to the season finale at Memphis Motorsports Park. That's not the paved track, it's the old three-quarter mile track that Xfinity used to run at it. They ran at it in 2009. But anyway, it would come down to Fultz and Rudiman at Memphis, with Rudiman entering the finale with a 9-point lead. So it was set up to where Jeff Fultz would need to win the race and would need Rudiman to finish outside the points to win the championship, while Rudiman just needed to finish in the points to effectively lock up the title. In the season finale at Memphis, David Rudiman would suffer an engine failure with around a third of the way through the race, and Rudiman would end up finishing 31st after completing 43 laps with a DNF for an engine failure. So with that DNF, it was set up to where if Jeff Fultz could win the season finale at Memphis, Fultz would win the championship. And then Jeff Fultz would do just that. He would win the season finale, and that win would have been enough for Fultz to lock up the championship over Rudiman by one single point. So Jeff Fultz would win the 2002 NASCAR SouthEast Championship. So the 2003 championship, it was a two-man battle for the title between Jeff Fultz and Charlie Bradbury. Both drivers were the class of the field in terms of speed and consistency. But of course, some late in the year, Charlie Bradbury, he would fail to be consistent in key moments of the year when it mattered the most. And then at the tail end of the year, Jeff Fultz would go on a winning streak at the end of the year and get hot at the right time. And that hot streak, it would be enough for Jeff Fultz to pull away from Bradbury in the championship. And Jeff Fultz would lock up the championship with a race to go in the season. So Jeff Fultz would win his second consecutive championship in 2003. So the 2004 championship battle, it was mainly a two-man battle for the title between Jeff Fultz and J.R. Norris. Both drivers were a class of the field in terms of speed and consistency, like nobody was on their level in 2004. But in the end, J.R. Norris would fail to be consistent in key moments of the year when it mattered the most. And Jeff Fultz would take advantage of it and pull away from Norris late in the season. And Fultz would lock up the championship with around a race to go in the season. So Jeff Fultz under this format would still win the 2004 Southeast Championship. And under this format, this would be Fultz's third consecutive championship. So the 2005 championship battle, it was mainly 4 drivers that broke out from the rest of the field, and those 4 be Jeff Fultz, Jason Hogan, Gary Helton, and J.R. Norris. All 4 were the class of the field in terms of speed and consistency, but late in the season, Jason Hogan and Gary Helton would fail to be consistent in key moments of the year and when it mattered the most, and both of them were eliminated with around a race or 2 to go in the season. So in the end, this championship battle would go all the way down to the season finale at Montgomery between Fultz and Norris, with Jeff Fultz entering with a 4-point lead over J.R. Norris. So Norris would need to finish a couple spots ahead of Fultz, and Fultz would need to finish a couple spots. Would just need to stay close to Norris in the points or in the race to win the championship. In the 2005 season finale at Montgomery, it was a very anticlimactic champion season finale between the two, as J.R. Norris, he would suffer an engine failure early in the race, and he would finish 19th with that engine failure. While Jeff Fultz, after pretty much locking up the championship after that, well, Jeff Fultz would suffer an ignition failure late in the race, and he would end up having to retire late in the race. And Fultz would end up finishing 15th for a DNF with an ignition issue. So with both drivers DNFing in the season finale, it meant that Jeff Fultz would lock up the 2005 championship by default. And under this format, this would be Fultz's 4th consecutive championship in 2005. And I should also mention that also in the season finale, Jason Hogan finished 2nd in the season finale. And that 2nd place finish would be enough for Hogan to leapfrog Norris in the standings for 2nd. But all that will do is just make the championship look a lot closer than it actually was. So for 2006, the final year of the NASCAR Southeast Series, this season would only run 4 races, but in those 4 races, there were 3 drivers that broke out from the rest of the field. Those 3 being J.R. Norris, Jason Hogan, and Gary Helton. Those 3 were the class of the field in those 4 races in terms of speed and consistency. But of course, Helton would fail to be consistent in the key races that mattered the most, and just could not keep up with Hogan and Norris, and Helton would be eliminated with around a race to go in the year. So in the end, this would now go down to the final race of the Southeast Series, the championship battle, at Greenfield Pickens Speedway between Norris and Hogan, with J.R. Norris entering with a 4-point lead over Jason Hogan. So in the final race at Greenfield Pickens Speedway, both Norris and Hogan ran up front for most of the race. It was very close between the two. But in the end, Jason Hogan, he would end up finishing 2nd in the season finale. But would that 2nd place finish be enough to lock up the championship? It would not be enough, as J.R. Norris would finish 4th in the season finale. And that 4th place finish would have been more than enough for Norris to lock up the championship over Hogan by 1 single point. So, under this format, J.R. Norris would still be the final NASCAR Southeast champion and would win the championship in the final year of the series. But yeah, anyway, that's going to wrap it up here for this part of What If NASCAR Had F1 Points format series. So this was a very interesting series, despite it only running for 16 seasons. But in those 16 seasons, there was definitely a lot of interest. Like, in those seasons, we had 9 title battles go down to the season finale. And we had only 5 title changes under this one. And of course, those 5 title changes being 1992, 1993, 1995, 1997, and 2003. So there was definitely a lot of interest here. Who knows, maybe this series would have lasted a little longer under the F1 points format and maybe have more interest. But yeah, but for the most part, a few things changed, but a lot of things stayed the same. Also, in those 16 years, we would have 2 drivers win 4 consecutive championships in a row. Those being Mike Cope in the 90s and then Jeff Volz in the 2000s. So yeah, there was definitely a few drivers that separated themselves from the rest in this series. But yeah, very interesting series. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this part. A little bit longer. Sorry for the long delay in uploads. Just a couple things happened. Just been busy with life in general and work. You know? And plus with me trying to do all these seasons in one part, it just took a long time doing all the research. But I'm going to try and get more out as soon as I can, like I always said before and stressed out. The series is not going anywhere. It's still here to stay. And of course, like I mentioned before, I'm in no rush to get this done. But yeah, anyway, that's going to wrap it up here. That's all I got to say. Hope everyone's a great day. We're going to continue on because, like I said, there's like 4 different divisions that this was branched on. And we're going to go to the next branch series in the next part. But anyway, that's all I got to say. Hope everyone's a great day. I'll see you on whatever I upload next. Peace out.